Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by Summer Moon Coffee. We are recording today's episode. It is Thursday. It is February 26th. The Thunder is now 4 games post All-Star break. They're 3-1 over that stretch. Most recently coming home from a 2-game road trip, a back-to-back that took them from Toronto to Detroit. They got the job done in Toronto, fell a little bit short in Detroit, but currently dealing with some extenuating circumstances. A lot of personnel out for Oklahoma City. We'll get into a lot of this in this podcast and who has stepped up for Oklahoma City, but a lot of takeaways to be taken away from these last 4 games.
Yeah, well, first of all, 22 games remaining on the schedule. And Paris, you remember how quickly the first 6 weeks of this season went by? There's only 6 weeks left in the season.
It's crazy to think about.
So really, amazing to see what the Thunder has put together and done to this point. But you're right, they are battling through a ton of adversity right now.
Yeah.
And what they're doing, I think, is they're showing to themselves what they've probably already known, but that this group has great problem-solving abilities. Mm-hmm. They have unbelievable depth, and they have an ability to go out and put them in position to be highly competitive night in and night out, regardless of the circumstances and regardless of the precise way that they're getting into their offense and the allocation of certain ways that they're playing each night.
Being very adaptive to your point, and also showcasing what is an ironclad system that has allowed guys to really thrive in the midst of all of these circumstances. So let's get into this a little bit deeper. Let's get into our Summer Moon stat of the week. Nick, I actually want to go first.
Go for it.
Because mine kind of ties back to this conversation we're having. My stat is 27.
Is that the number of points that Cason Wallace scored in Toronto?
It is the number of points, but that's not what this 27 is referring to. And shout out Cason Wallace. We'll talk more about him shortly.
27.
This might be a little difficult. This might be a little tough. I'll give you a hint. It is a collection of games that the Thunder has done this thing.
Is this the number of times the Thunder has scored 120 points or more?
Close.
Okay.
So the Thunder this season has 27 games where they have forced 25 points off turnovers.
Nice.
That includes yesterday in Detroit going up against the Pistons where they had 27 points off turnovers. And I bring this up because this is the third most since 1996-97. Shout out to our guy CJ for this stat because it's really remarkable. The third most all time in the NBA. The number one team, that was the 2024-25 Thunder with 29 games.
So they're already right up on it.
They're already very close to that already. And this includes the Thunder's game against Detroit. And the reason I brought this up is because the Thunder only had 9 available players to them when they were playing the Pistons. And that's post-halftime. So Isaiah Joe left at halftime, did not return to the game with injury. And then Brandon Carlson also left at halftime, didn't come back. And so the Thunder only had 9 available players. And what we saw was the same Thunder, system that we're talking about. And that's, making sure that you're leaning in on the defensive end of the floor, trying to be as disruptive as possible. And it helps that 2 of those 9 available players are incredible defenders for Oklahoma City, and Cason Wallace and Lou Dort absolutely doing their jobs.
Yeah, the Thunder continue to give itself a chance by winning the possession battle in the game. At Detroit, they were able to do that also in the 3 previous games coming here out of the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. So some really nice pop defensively when you look at particularly that second quarter against Brooklyn, really the entire game against Cleveland, and then at Toronto, they got the stops when they needed to as well against a team that was playing with immense pressure on the other end of the floor. So this Thunder squad, when you got Queso and Lou and then Alex Caruso was in that Toronto game, they've got a chance to really disrupt people, and we've seen that all season.
Yeah, the Thunder, it's really their bread and butter. It's where they want to hang their hat each night, and it's really encouraging to see that even in the midst of, fluctuating personnel throughout the course of the season. Mind you, the Thunder has, I think, still the 3rd most man games lost due to injury of any team.
Over 300 on the season.
Over 300 man games lost, which is crazy to think about. They've still maintained this really high standard of defense that hasn't fluctuated amidst all of the adversity. So I just wanted to point that out because it shows that they have a lot of stability regardless of the fluctuating personnel.
Yeah, and you just think about it. The Thunder's played 60 games. So that's an average of 5 players missing per game if I'm
Wow.
doing the math correctly.
Yeah.
Paris, you're gonna have to check that.
I'm
Our producer
no
Matt Bishop,
math
can you
guru.
if you pull your calculator out? I think
Let me
that's
crunch
right.
the numbers.
But yeah, I mean, so that's an average of 5 guys that you're missing every single night.
Yeah.
That's a third of your roster players, right? I mean, how
Unavailable.
hard is it? The degree of difficulty
Mm-hmm.
to do that and to be competitive in this league is unbelievable. So I just wanted to stop down there and recognize what a challenge that is. And it hasn't only been, obviously Thomas Sorber's missed all year and Nikola Topic missed a lot of the year, but that's only 2, right? That leaves at least 3 of guys that are playing every single night. Basically, everybody else has been in the rotation nightly, unless they've been injured.
Yeah, and so the Thunder, it's part of their system to be able to try to adapt to these changing circumstances. But the fact that you have no semblance of rhythm when you're dealing with something like that. And so to create some sense of stability with your style of play is really impressive for me watching this group recently. And it also hasn't always been perfect. I mean,
of course,
that's just the nature of an 82-game season. But the fact that defensively you're kind of staying to that standard each night is really impressive for me to see. Okay. Nick, thanks for letting me go first.
You got it.
What's your stat?
9-0.
Is this referring to last night's game?
It's not.
Dang it.
Last night was in Detroit.
Yes.
This is referring to 2 nights ago.
In Toronto. 9-0 run.
That's correct.
That the Thunder went on after Toronto tied the game at 101 with like 4 minutes left to play.
Star Student of the Week, Paris Lawson. Put that little
We're
plaque right there.
On the fridge.
Perfect.
Yep.
Get it framed.
That's a great one.
Yeah. So, I mean, what a wild swing that Toronto game had. You're on the road against a team that's, vying for high level playoff positioning in the Eastern Conference. You're up by 20 some points in that game, and the Raptors come charging back, tie the game at 101 with just a few minutes remaining. And just like that, the Thunder snaps back. I mean, all of the momentum in the world is on Toronto's side. That building is going nuts. The second that the shot went in to tie that ball game at 101, that could have been just an avalanche. And the Thunder could have been completely rolled over. I think to that point, the Thunder had been outscored like 21-3 or 18-3 in the beginning stages of the fourth quarter. But Cason Wallace sparked a 9-0 run to help the Thunder just immediately respond. And that was big time gutsy. It showed a massive amount of maturity, mental toughness, and a word that Mark Daigneault has been using a lot lately, which is assuredness in itself. That, hey, these types of things are going to happen. We've seen this over the course of the last few years. Remember that 30-point comeback that the Dallas Mavericks stormed back on the Thunder, and then OKC ends up winning that game? That's extremely hard to do, to not just let that bowl you over. And the Thunder showed that they can flex that muscle regardless of who's on the floor.
I mean, that Toronto game in general just had so many different layers to it.
Yeah.
The Thunder, they had an early lead and then lost it. And then Toronto got a lead. And then, Isaiah Joe went on a one-man run in the third quarter. And
19
then
in the third, I think.
19 points alone in the third quarter. I think he had 6 points in one – or no, the Thunder had 6 points in one possession.
Yes.
Isaiah Joe had like 8 points in 2 possessions.
That's right. Yeah,
or something wild like that.
2 4-point plays in rapid succession.
I mean, that never happens in the NBA, so that takes a lot of talent.
Get your money's worth, Isaiah Joe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that game just had so many different layers to it. And by the end of it, I mean, you're on the road. That is the loudest I've ever heard Scotiabank Arena. Not that I've spent a ton of time out there. I've only been there, I think, 7 times in my career. But it was so loud. I think I was struggling to hear Chris and Mike at one point.
Yeah.
And the fact that this group, under control, poised, confident, composed, assured, to use Mark Daigneault's words, just to make sure you control what you can control. All right, Toronto went on a run. We can do the same thing. Just stack possessions. And that's exactly what they did, to walk away and steal a win.
Yep.
Out in Toronto against a really good Raptors team that really had it going.
And you think about kind of a game that you had to have. That was a big game. You got this back-to-back coming, and you're so shorthanded. When you give yourself a chance to win on the road, you love to be able to secure that victory.
You got to take advantage.
That's what I mean by had to have, is like, you've done all this work to put yourself in position, and to be up and to go and then take that back was amazing. And Cason Wallace started it off twice by getting right to the rim.
Yep.
And that's a Toronto team that's hard to score on down low, hard to score on in general. And he got all the way to the cup. Great burst. And by the way, he had 27 points, just to remind you of my guess from before.
He sure did. And this is the perfect segue to talk about Cason Wallace recently, because he has been on an absolute heater in the month of February. Now, this correlates with the fact that the Thunder has been shorthanded significantly throughout the month of February. And not just shorthanded, but shorthanded in one specific area, and that's in its primary ball handlers. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, and AJ Mitchell all missing some time here for Oklahoma City. And so that leaves you with a little bit of a vacancy in terms of your primary ball handlers and creators offensively for OKC. Cason Wallace has stepped into this role with a lot of confidence. He stepped into a little bit of a larger role. Now, the Thunder typically, when they're down certain players, they're not going to do a one-for-one trade.
Yeah.
They like to solve problems with all five, which is exactly what we've seen. We've also seen a lot of playmaking and facilitating from the bigs for Oklahoma City. So guys like Isaiah Hartenstein, Jay Will doing a really good job kind of quarterbacking at that nail spot.
Yeah.
But we've also seen Cason Wallace step into this role as well. And it's been really fun to see. He's had the highest scoring month of his career, and he's doing it in a lot of different ways. And you brought up the Toronto game. I think that goes to show one element to what's made Cason so strong here is just the confidence that he's playing with on the offensive end.
Yeah, he clearly has great belief, and he's had that since he
100%.
got to the team. Mark Daigneault told us, one of the things that he loves to do when a new player comes in is he just wants to observe how the team reacts to the guy. And one thing that he noticed very early on with Cason Wallace is like, look, Cason is about as stoic as you can get. You're not going to be able to really read him too much, but he noticed that the guys really responded to Cason's own, in not braggadocious in any way, but just sort of steadiness, assuredness, again, confidence in his ability to be a high-level performer on both ends of the floor. And what he brought defensively early allowed him to get on the floor.
Exactly.
And then provided him the opportunities to learn in real time from the game. And what we're seeing now is really the payout on all of that time spent on the floor by Cason.
Exactly.
On the offensive end.
So this is what fascinates me about Cason, because obviously we know him as this elite point of attack defender, the league leader in steals per game. That's the skill that got him onto the court. It's very easy to forget at this point, he's only 22 years old. He's only in his third season in the NBA because he's been so impactful from day one. He's been a part of a championship team, a championship run. He's gotten all of these experiences. But the reason he was on the floor in the first place to get those experiences was his number one elite skill, and that's defense, elite defense, point of attack, disruption. But while you're on the court, I mean, if you're going to be on the court while playing defense, half the time you're going to be on the offensive end. So you're going to pick up all these pictures, all these experiences of how to play, how to orchestrate, facilitate, be a part of that five-man unit out there offensively. So over 2.5 seasons, Cason's picking up all this information. He's watching a lot of film. He's learning all these things. It's not like he wasn't a good offensive player when he came into the NBA. He just happened to be on a team with a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, and your role looks a little bit different. But all of that stuff, all that knowledge, all that skill is still there. And then when you have this opportunity in front of you where, you are missing 3 primary ball handlers and you kind of have this chance to step into a larger role, maybe spread your wings a little bit, you show what you've learned over the last 3 years. And Cason's doing just that. Just to add some stats to this conversation, the last 3 games, he scored over 20 points. 3 straight games. He had 4 20-point games all last season.
Yeah. Total.
All last season. So he's averaging 23 points per game, shooting highly efficiently, 54% from the field, 57% from the 3-point line. But my favorite part of all of this is the 7 assists that he's averaging over these 3 games. It's not like Cason's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's 60 extra shots available tonight. I'm going to take all of them.
And this has really been coalescing.
Yes.
Mark Daigneault said that the starting point was really that game out in Denver where he again went for 27, had a massive shooting night from behind the arc. That was an initial sort of catalyst. That was before, these injuries that the Thunder has taken over the last couple weeks. But in February, Cason, so it's not just these 3 games, but in February, 15 points per game, 5 assists per game, 48% from the field, 37% from three. Those are, the numbers here the last 3 games, otherworldly.
They're loud.
Would be very, very unfair to expect that level of performance. Right. But over February,
that's a good point.
That's a sample size that you can look at and say, okay, hey, this is a guy that is demonstrating that he can play within his game. He can play within the style that he is already playing. But when the allocation is headed his way a little bit more, he can own some of that and still remain pretty efficient. This could pay dividends down the line. Yep. And we're going to talk about another sort of bigger picture aspect of things that, look, when you get into the playoffs, which the Thunder is still fighting to do, you're going to need as many weapons as you can have, and you're going to need as many counters as you can have. Frankly, the Thunder did not have this level of assured Cason Wallace on the offensive end last year during its playoff run. So remains to be seen, of course, but this could be a massive weapon for the Thunder to be able to deploy when teams are really, really invading the space of Shea and J-Dub and Chet Holmgren.
Another tool in the toolkit, and a tool that you've now had a lot of reps with, good experience with. You know the trade-offs and you know everything that comes with it, so that when the time comes to potentially deploy it, you know what you're going to get out of it. Mind you, on the other side of the floor, Cason hasn't compromised on his strongest skill at all. He's still defending at a high level. I mean, against the Houston Rockets, minute for minute with James Harden, did a great job. And similar for every team that the Thunder has faced over this month of February, just continuing to rise to what he hasn't compromised on that end of the floor. And that's been really, really encouraging. The other person that I want to talk about over this stretch is Isaiah Joe. Because he left the game last night with, I believe, a left glute contusion and did not return to the game. But he has been also on a white-hot heater shooting from behind the three-point line. He called it potentially one of his most consistent shooting streaks of his career, shooting the heck out of the ball right now, and has been lighting it up from behind the arc.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at him, his last 8 games, 17 points per game, 50% from 3, 32 made threes. Coming into the game last night at Detroit, he had the most made threes in the month of February out of anybody in the NBA.
That's right.
And you think about it, for the most part, this guy's been coming off the bench. Here lately, he's started on that road trip. And then, of course, in the game against Cleveland, where he had a career-high 5 steals in the first 6 minutes of the game. I know that caught Cason Wallace's eye of like, hey, wait a second.
Good hands.
That's what I'm supposed to be doing.
And it was really impressive for Isaiah Joe, because it goes to show he is a master of this Thunder system. He said that one of those biggest areas of growth, just talking about the defensive end of the floor, is playing off of the Thunder's elite point of attack defenders. So guys like Cason, Lou, and Alex Caruso, really learning how to read plays and when to make a play, when to stay at home. And so he really capitalized on that in the first quarter against, who was that? The Houston Rockets?
Yes.
Yeah, he really capitalized.
Cleveland
Cavaliers really capitalized on that in the first quarter. And so he's also can really hold his own defensively, while also continuing to strengthen his strongest skill, which is pretty hard to do at this level in the NBA. But this goes hand in hand with another aspect to what the Thunder's had to do here with this stretch of injuries that they're dealing with, being adaptive in how they're creating advantages offensively. Without these incredible ball handlers and play creators in Shea and Dub and AJ, now the Thunder's playing a lot, as we mentioned, through their bigs. Well, the bigs aren't just like standing there and everyone's like standing around them. No, there's so much movement happening out there on the floor. And one guy who's been moving a lot, Isaiah Joe, just watch him on a single possession. The man is flying all over the floor. The shots that he's getting a lot of the time now are on the move, versus when he's out there with a guy like Shea or Dub, it's more like spacing the floor, spotting up. He'll stretch the floor and shoot from basically the logo. But a lot of this now is off the move, which is a little bit higher level of difficulty, but something that Isaiah's been preparing for, ready for. That's a tool in his toolkit that he's been ready to use.
And again, we're talking about allocation. And so to your point, Paris, when Shea, Dub, those guys are out there, Isaiah is actually used more as a screener. We see that play up top that they love to run where Isaiah sets a screen or slips out of a screen, and all of a sudden, if Shea's got 2 men defending him, that is a quick flip out pass to Joe for
easy
above the break 3. what we're seeing here during the stretch where the Thunder does not have Shea, J-Dub, or AJ Mitchell is OKC is playing through the bigs as hubs at the elbows, really above the elbows sometimes to try to extend the floor. And what they're doing is they're running Isaiah Joe off of those guys pretty relentlessly. They're running Jared McCain, who we're going to talk about in just a minute. They're running Cason Wallace off of those get actions or dribble handoffs that you're seeing up at the top of the key. And that is creating the opportunities to generate advantages. And so what the Thunder wants to do is pierce the defense and get into the lane. Well, they're having to do it a little bit differently than they have in the past, but ultimately the types of shots and the types of looks that are being created end up being about the same. It's just the way that they're sort of initially being manufactured is a bit different. Now, and Joe's a big recipient.
And this is a tool, this is something the Thunder has had in their arsenal that they've dabbled in. It hasn't been their sharpest tool, but something obviously they've got to lean on pretty heavily now. But similar to what we were talking about with Cason Wallace, this is something that the Thunder is learning, okay, this has some legs to it. And, guys like Isaiah Hartenstein and Jay Will, they're such high IQ players, amazing passers, two great passing big men, and also great screeners, that it's turning into, now we're sharpening this tool a lot more. So down the road, when the team is whole and you've got more pieces and more options at your disposal, this is another tool that you have a lot of reps with, a lot of experience with, the trade-offs of, that you could deploy if needed down the road.
Yeah, and that's what the Thunder wants to be building. They want to be building a menu that can be can withstand the slings and arrows that are going to come its way come playoff time. The Thunder saw what it took to get to where they wanted to get to last season.
Yeah.
That was not easy, and there were so many roadblocks and obstacles that got put in its way, and the Thunder had to find answers and counters to counters and have the mental strength and resilience to get through it as well. We are seeing all of that tested in this crucible here in February.
And it can only happen if the personnel that you have available to you are competing at a high level and leaning into this system, playing to all of their strengths. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Isaiah Joe lighting it up with his strongest strength. Cason Wallace really leaning into a strength that he hasn't really been able to dabble in as much, but sharpening that area of his game nonetheless. Jalen Williams, Isaiah Hartenstein, all of these guys just playing to their level of basketball, all within the system. That's the biggest element of this, is that no one's stepping outside of their already established game. They're just maybe getting allocated a little bit more areas that are part of their skill set, part of their repertoire, but they're kind of having to lean into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's all working pretty well for this group right now. They put up a really good fight against the Detroit Pistons, really brought that game down to the wire. A fully healthy Detroit Pistons on the road on the second night of a back-to-back. A lot of wind at the Thunder's face, but again, that system really strong, allowing them to make that a ball game, and all the while develop elements of this system that could be useful down the road, continuing to show a lot of evolution. The other part of this that we should talk about is the new faces on the court for Oklahoma City, starting with potentially like the most heartwarming face out there, Nikola Topic, who made his debut here recently for Oklahoma City after missing all of last season with an ACL injury, and then the majority of this season recovering from cancer. And so it's been really cool to see him out there on the court, and really just ultimately for the Thunder, just happy for him to be in a Thunder uniform playing basketball. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kid who entered the NBA draft at age 18 in hopes of pursuing a dream for his life. Now, he already knew that he was going to have to miss pretty much a whole season due to an ACL tear, but he came over to the United States anyway. He came to Oklahoma. He made this his home. He diligently worked through what can be a very lonely rehab while the team is ping-ponging all around the country. He's back here at home. He's trying to get settled. He's trying to get his life together. He is still a teenager. And after that arduous journey, he's right at the precipice of being able to play. He plays one preseason game and suddenly, shockingly, has to have a procedure and then chemotherapy for testicular cancer, which, if you talk to any of these Thunder players, they say, look, all of us have been through some type of injury. None of us have any experience or perspective
Right.
with fighting for our life.
Mm-hmm.
And, even Chet Holmgren, a guy who, was in maybe more agony than anybody I've ever seen on a basketball court. He stopped any question in its tracks to say, look, I have no perspective on what this must have been like for Topic. And so just, unbelievably inspiring to have this guy fight through what he's fought through, to be working out while undergoing chemotherapy. He told me, he said, all of the doctors, everybody said that for me to be able to get back to where I want to be, the best thing would be to try to work out and to try to, put forth that physical exertion while getting treatment. I cannot imagine how sick and how terrible he must have been feeling during that time, and to still gut it out and to get out there and to try to be working on his body during that time. So, massive shout out and kudos to Nikola.
Every single person that we have talked to in the Thunder organization when talking about Nikola Topic is just very happy for him, inspired by him, but also very impressed by him. The way that, mind you, he is still young. This is a very, very young man, 20 years old, 20 years old, and has already gone through so much adversity over the course of this very young NBA career. And he has had a great attitude, hasn't made anything about him, has been a part of this group and just tried to integrate in ways that he can. And I think for most 20-year, I know when I was 20 years old, I would not have had that same mentality. Yeah. And so it's just very impressive to see not only the way that he was able to get through this, but also how everyone around him was just so encouraged, impressed by him, and inspired ultimately. I mean, I think he's inspired a lot of people. And so big congratulations to Nikola Topic. We're so happy to see him out there on the court. And he's not only just playing basketball, he's contributing to wins as well, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, he has made some massive plays. I think, the thing that will always stand out to me is the reception he got when he walked onto the floor for the first time against Milwaukee right before the All-Star break. And they gave him the ball to go make a play on his very first possession. And it's a very deft, quick pass into the lane for a push shot and a bucket. I think it was Jay Will.
I think it was Jay Will.
Yeah. And so, talk about a great teammate. Jay Will giving your guy an assist by hitting that bucket. And it was so poetic for that to be Topic's first, NBA play.
Of course. Is
making a play for a teammate, getting somebody else involved. That's kind of how he's been billed as a player. And he comes in a very comfortable way. Of course, he has a long road to go. He's talked so much about how, he'll watch some film or feel himself out there on the floor being like, wait, I don't do that on the court. Like, I don't, where is this coming from? And so much of it is just trying to get used to, his body again, and you just know that, he is going to be so motivated, over the course of the rest of this season and heading into the off season and beyond to try to get himself back to the great shape that he was in coming into the season. Because, anybody that's been through chemotherapy knows way better than I do what that can do to your body.
Yeah. So Nikola Topic, certainly to your point, a long way to go, but done some great things up to this point. And most of all, just really excited and happy for him to be out onto the court. Played 15 minutes last night in Detroit. That's a career high for him. Gonna keep working on that and keep moving forward there. Another new face for Oklahoma City, Jared McCain, who the Thunder acquired in at the trade deadline. And Jared is very interesting because he came over from Philadelphia, and he's a guy who has dealt with injury over the course of his young NBA career. And the way that he is already integrated into this group kind of seamlessly, it's been very impressive. Obviously, an incredible sharpshooter, can shoot the ball very well, and has showcased that here early. But as the Thunder has dealt with injuries, he has done a really nice job of threading the needle between respecting the fact that he is coming into a very successful team that has been very successful together, as he's jumping onto a moving train, but also playing with some confidence and some assuredness, not really being too overly passive out there on the court, but, contributing.
Yeah, humility and responsibility. And those are two qualities that if you looked around at a room and you said, if somebody has those qualities, you'd probably want to spend time with that person, right? And that is something that was identified in Jared McCain in the process of acquiring him over the last half decade, basically, of the team kind of tracking him and who he is as a person as much as a player and competitor. And what we've seen from Jared is a willingness to just slide in and be a part of the team, but also not be bashful about when it's his responsibility to go out there and make plays for himself and for the team. 8 games, 19 minutes a game, 11.5 points per game, 44% from 3. Those are numbers that you can work with. And we've seen scale up and down based on the situation. And by the way, he's been able to play alongside, all these guys to this point. And of course, there are some things that, still got to get worked out. He's got to learn some of the, coverages and the play calls and the sets. And, you can
everyone's name.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He's got to get his clothes from Philadelphia, as Mark said. But he'll get himself settled, and he's got 22 games here over the rest of the regular season to continue to work through that.
And it's really interesting too, because when you bring somebody in the middle of the season, you got to get the right person if you want them to be able to come in, contribute, and be a part of the group. And from what we've observed in Jared's interaction with the group, fits right in. This team is, and we've heard from, I think it was J-Dub or J-Will, one of those guys who was like, we're a pretty easy team to our locker room, if you're a young guy who's fun, and you'll fit right in.
You will, but it is an established group.
It is,
with a clear identity and atmosphere, and to some people that could be intimidating, or it might be tempting to kind of just keep to yourself. And Jared is done right by the team and has honored what's been built here previously as he's come in.
Yeah, personality-wise, character-wise, very, very strong match with this organization, and it's showing itself in what he's been able to do out there on the court. So great to see from Jared McCain and Nikola Topic, 2 new faces out there on the court for the Thunder doing some great things. All right, shall we get into what's brewing for Oklahoma City? Because we are now, what's brewing? We should get into what's up next. So the Thunder is back home at Paycom Center for a short time, not a long time. They're going to play the Denver Nuggets on Friday, a city night here inside of Paycom Center. A really, really interesting matchup between those two teams who have only played each other once. And that was actually at the beginning of February. So it's February 1st was the last time these two teams played. And now they're going to play on the last day of February here inside of Paycom Center. That's going to be on Friday. And then they head out for a 3-game road trip that begins in Dallas and ends in New York.
Yeah.
It was kind of
hey, we were just out there.
I'm really confused by this, because you remember that road trip earlier in the season where we had to pack for 3 different climates because we started in Houston and Miami and ended up in Cleveland, Milwaukee. Yeah. I feel like it's going to be a similar vibe on this road trip.
Yeah, because it is gorgeous out here in Oklahoma City today. And then you just think about the snowstorm that New York just got. And what's going on in Chicago? Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? So some really good matchups on the table for Oklahoma City. We'll see who's available for the Thunder throughout that stretch. But we do know that the Thunder going to continue to showcase this incredible adaptability we've seen from them in terms of, the ability to create advantages, and also just the system that has just been ironclad for them over this stretch as they continue. Only 22 games remaining.
Stunning. Yep.
On the regular season. Incredible to think about for this group.
Yep.
All right. Well, that wraps us up. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our incredible producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.